How can kids or people in their 30s or 40s be educated to make sure their parents are taken care of when it comes to Medicare?
If you talk about the aging population, currently right now there's over 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 a day in this country, and they all have to make a decision to get on a health insurance plan.
Ty Brady started his career in 2008, specializing in helping individuals already in Medicare.
A lot of people that are in their 30s or 40s have parents that are getting to that age, and they need to help navigate the maze. We call it the maze of Medicare because it's confusing.
He started his agency in 2012 and has expanded into 44 states. He's one of the top FMI in the country. He's also passionate about family and friends and help other agencies and agent owners achieve their personal level of success.
And one of the big misconceptions out there is a lot of people.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 2 of Salt Lake Living with Joe Black. Today we have a special guest. He's a business owner, trainer, coach, a podcast host, superdad, and my friend, Ty Brady. How are you?
Oh, great, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Thanks for coming. Excited to have you. How was your trip, by the way?
Which one? The one from New Zealand was a blast. You know, as you know, that's how I got to know you, is we do that couple retreat. You know, if anybody, you're married, have a partner or spouse, it's important to take those retreats, especially if you're an independent owner, is a business owner like you and I. We seem to wear many hats and work a lot of day and night. So it's important to take that time to spend that time with your significant other. I think that's more important than the sights we see. But, you know, it brings back a lot of memories and we have a lot of fun doing it.
That's so true. I couldn't agree more. Did you see any crocodiles?
Not on this trip. Well, we did on the trip 2 trips ago, right?
Yeah. So let's just jump right in here if you don't mind. I recently saw one of your posts where you were getting a little bit vulnerable, and you said something about the willingness to do that based on people's ability to relate. And I absolutely can. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Your post was saying something about going through some hardship after a different career and some house changing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Wow. You know, hopefully I don't get a little too emotional here, but tell you what, it's the worst thing and best thing that's ever happened to me. For those of you, obviously a lot of people may not know me from, you know, your show, but there was a time when I lost everything, and I started social media about 3 years ago. So I haven't been on social media very long, but I use social media I started out for tips and tricks for insurance agents to teach them how to do what I do. But it evolved from there to interviewing other successful entrepreneurs and business owners. And, you know, I've had to learn to tell my story and how I became who I am today. And part of that is I, in 2008, I mean, I never thought I'd grow up and be in the industry I am today. I don't think anybody grows up and says, hey, I want to be in the insurance business. In 2008, in the week before Thanksgiving, I was given my last paycheck and said, there was the door. I ran a $33 million, I ran a construction company. I was the project manager. I was in charge of 150 employees at the peak. We did about $33 million in revenue. Over that time frame, multiple big developments that I developed, as well as small commercial, and then, I mean, hundreds of homes, thousands of homes.
Wow.
And I was in charge of building those. So they gave me my last paycheck, and, you know, I'd built my so-called dream home. At least I thought it was between the 7th and 11th course of a golf course. I'd be like, hey, you know, I've got everything. You know, everybody, the American dream is to own a home. And I was getting my last paycheck. And as you know, in 08, 09, that's when the economy was in turmoil with the housing market. And so I called up the bank and said, hey, I'd really like to do a forbearance, basically tacking on my payment to the back end of my loan until I got my feet underneath me so that I could make the payment and move forward so I didn't have to get kicked out of my house. And they're like, we can't help you until you make until you're in default. I've never missed a payment on a mortgage ever. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll miss a payment. Well, in the process, from the short version, from November to April, my house was sold, and there was nothing I could do about it. I tried getting a new job. I worked 17 different jobs. I was working day and night, just anything I could do to save my house. And it forced me to then move in with my parents. And, you know, as a dad, you know, a father, as a spouse, I mean, that really hurt. I mean, especially when, you know, getting my feet underneath me, and figuring out what I want to do when I grew up. I mean, it was like the rug was ripped out from underneath me. And I'm like, my parents had a big house. They were grateful. I'm still grateful for my parents to this day, moving to that house. And I moved from my parents' house. We were there for 4 years where I figured out what I was going to do, doing the business I do now. And I worked the business I do now part-time until I was able to jump in full-time. And then it was the house I could afford. And from the house I could afford to a house my dream house. Well, that was the dream house for a time being. And then my wife's like, we need to remodel and so on, which is fine. It's why I do what I do. We do a lot for our significant others. And the location's great, but she doesn't like the finishes. She wants it to be more open. A lot of the new houses have an open floor plan. And so seems like we're always looking, and never close the door being like, hey, this is the end all be all. So we're always, looking for houses. I think you and I talked a little bit about what's going on and look at some lots, but nothing's really felt right. I'm convinced that the universe puts things in your path. And you basically need to look into them until the universe smacks you upside the head and tells you need to stop.
Yeah.
So that is the version of the last, 15 years in a nutshell.
Isn't it crazy how it's about stepping stones, really, right? Like that first house, getting out of your parents' house might not have been the forever home, but it was definitely a step in the right direction. You got to get your independence going. And I've been there, man. I appreciate that story. What would you say to anyone else going through that kind of hardship right now, maybe?
Never give up. I mean, in the moment, things may look rough. One of the defining moments in my life, and my wife tells me, she said, Ty, you can't dwell on that. And it was this. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's 20, gonna turn 22 this year. And she came to me and she was probably 8. And we were in my mom and dad's house for maybe a month. And she says, Dad, when can we move back into our old house? Dude, that was like, just a knife in my back and twisted. And to see the look in her eyes, I'm like, I made a decision that day that nobody would ever control my destiny again. And that's why I became an independent business owner, entrepreneur, and why I do what I do. Because you know what? We all fell, in my podcast show, I see similarities where successful people have failed many times. And what the difference between someone who is successful and not is that I got up one more time. That's it. I got up one more time.
Well, you fell forward, right? You
That's right.
Learn or win. So that's the difference. What's shifting to your current profession a little bit? You're an insurance broker, correct?
Yes.
How can kids or people in their 30s or 40s be educated to make sure their parents are taken care of when it comes to Medicare?
Well, that is a great question. So if you talk about the aging population, currently right now, there's over 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 a day in this country. And they all have to make a decision to get on a health insurance plan, unless they have other circumstances like a group plan or so be it. So a lot of people that are in their 30s or 40s have parents that are getting to that age, and they need to help navigate the maze. We call it the maze of Medicare because it's confusing. And a lot of people, and especially on, my posts when it comes to my business page is, are there penalties if you don't sign up? Yes. When can you sign up? How can you sign up? All those types of things. And one of the big misconceptions out there is a lot of people, you see the TV commercials, hey, Medicare, get this, get that, all these little gimmies, right? Those are the sizzle to a lot of those plans. Get your dental, do you get gym membership? Are you getting reimbursement for this or that? Are you getting groceries? We've all seen it if you're ever watching cable TV, those commercials. But the point is that it doesn't cost money to use an agent. And I prefer to do business face-to-face. I mean, that's amazing to me that I'll get the call after somebody thought they could do it on their own. And they're like, help me out. I don't understand this. They're telling me this. They're telling me that. And I said, listen, there's truth in all things, but it's partial truth. But here's the whole story. Here's the whole picture you need to look at. And that's the thing is there's no harm in sitting down and having a conversation and being educated on what your decisions are or what you can do.
And a free game plan never hurts anybody, right?
Correct.
Just get educated. In the real estate industry, there's talks of whether or not there's going to be what's called a silver wave, whereas all these boomers come to an age of needing to sell their home to downsize or move back in with family for care. Are you guys foreseeing anything like that or prepping for it?
It's not forcing, but I can tell you the trend. I will tell you this: the last 5 years, I can tell you the baby boomers are transient. They're moving, they're downsizing, they're getting smaller houses, they're moving closer to family. They want houses where they can live in a basement with their kids. That is, in my opinion, that is the trend. It is happening now. And I don't know if you're seeing that on your real estate, but they're definitely downsizing. They don't need the 6,000 square foot head with 4 bedrooms, 6 baths where they grew up with their kids.
They want some stairs to climb.
No, they don't. They want simplicity. Yards they don't have to take care of, free maintenance. I mean, you're seeing it with, I see it when I go in and visit with people of that age where they're going into senior housing, where they get 3 meals a day, or they've got activities they can do, or they don't have to worry about maintenance, or they can get rides to the grocery store. It's a sense of community and belonging. Or they're moving to more affordable places where they sell, like, for instance, Social Security is not enough. So they're like, we got to sell our house to make up the difference to continue to live, because the life longevity is longer. And then they're moving to Midwest places or places that are more affordable than where they currently live.
Sure. What advice would you give anyone approaching the Medicare age in the next 12 to 18 months?
Talk to somebody. No, I'll tell you this. Talk to somebody who's a broker versus somebody who may be captive with a specific agent. And what I mean by that is that the captive, they're great people, but they can only sell one product, which meaning they have to rep the company they're employed by. Talk to a broker where they can look at all of your options to find the products and services that work best for you. It doesn't matter to me if somebody chooses XYZ, PDQ, swap, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because to me, I get paid the same and it doesn't cost money to use an agent. If they go online and purchase a program, it's the same as whether I was to do it. The difference is there's probably somebody on the back end that they're not seeing that's getting paid that commission.
Are there any time frame requirements, open enrollment, age to apply?
Yeah, so if you're aging into Medicare, we call aging into Medicare, meaning you're turning 65. If you do not have a qualified plan, you need to sign up 3 months before or 3 months after. There's a 7-month window, meaning you have 3 months prior to your birthday, the month of, and 3 months after. So if you don't have a qualifying plan like a group plan, and here's another misconception, Medicare says that your plan is no longer credible if you stop working. So if you're on a retiree plan and you rolled that out for 3 to 5 years and now you want to sign up for Medicare, you may have a penalty, because the rule says that you have to be working. Now, you could have a spouse that's working and it still qualifies, and there's some hoops to jump through, and I don't want to get all the weeds, but there is a process, and that's why I say get educated, talk to a broker, not a captive agent. That would be my suggestion, so that they can show you all the options that are available in your area, because the plans are specific to areas and they are specific to regions. So the plan that's offered here in my market may not be the same in Vegas or California. So it's very important. Just like the housing market, right? There are certain houses somewhere, affordability, cost, all those things.
I like that captive term. I'm going to use that when describing loan officers from now on.
Yeah.
What about Medicare ever going away? Do you see that being an issue?
No. So it can't happen. It's too popular. It's not going to happen. I mean, it would be political suicide, honestly, if they did it. I mean, look at Nikki. She's out to get policy, but there's a person that wants a nominee that has talked about raising the limit for Social Security and Medicare, and it's killing that individual right now in trying to move forward. There was just a post this morning I saw.
Cool. So you actually live probably 2 minutes from me. How do you like living in Herriman?
I like it. I think we've got an issue with getting in and out traffic wise, especially with all the construction. I do see a light at the end of the tunnel, but the question is we need a new high school, right? We need my biggest issue is schooling. I mean, you've got too many kids, opportunities if the kids want to play sports. They're just not going to have a chance. I mean, not that the kids aren't skilled enough to play. It's that they've got too many kids. Yeah. And, the same kid, you don't need three or 5 or 6 different kids for saying the same position. I mean, I had a neighbor of mine, really, really skilled in baseball, played comp ball for the last, what is he, 16 now? Since he was a little kid, didn't make the high school baseball team, because they can only take so many kids. I mean, that's where I'm more concerned about, opportunity for my kids, because that's what it's about. But, and the traffic right now. but I live in a dead end cul-de-sac. Traffic's nice, quiet. I mean, no complaints in that. Love the house, except for wants to be remodeled and updated. My wife does. I'd be fine.
Never end, friend.
What's that?
That'll never end.
Yeah.
How does Herriman compare to other places you've lived or traveled to?
It's up there. I didn't say this earlier on the show, but my first 17 years of being married, we've moved 19 times. So, the longest house I lived in currently is the house I live in now, and the one prior to, moving to Herriman. So there was a time, I've been married 23 years this month, that we moved a lot. I mean, sometimes 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. It was just next steps.
That's a lot of moving. I hate the moving part. What do you like about Salt Lake County as a whole?
I really like it. There's a lot of things to do, right? If you want to go bowling, you can find bowling. There's you can get places fairly quickly. I mean, not in 20 minutes. Seems like anywhere you want to go takes 40 minutes anywhere. But in general, you can travel, especially with the I-15 corridor and then, Mountain View corridor, you can get to and from pretty quick. I mean, airport's 20 minutes, right? If you take Mountain View corridor right now. So just getting where I need to go, especially with my work, getting to the airport because I go in and out of town a lot. That's what's really convenient. And especially with Herriman as well. I mean, the crime is way down. It's coming. I mean, I have a lot of good friends. I coach their kids in sports, and they're on the police squad there at Herriman, and they talk about, shootings that are happening, for instance, in like South Jordan. And they say, unfortunately, it's coming this way. It's just as we get bigger and the crime's coming.
Yeah. Anytime you have that kind of growth, for sure. I think you're very correct about the infrastructure system. Brigham Young was a smart man to lay it out in the square grid, is what I've heard people say, right? Olympus Hills, is that what that new development's going to be called when it comes out by Herriman?
I'm familiar with Olympia, not the hills.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be high density out there in that west field over by the old Herriman High somewhere. So that's going to be interesting to see how Herriman's roads affect by that.
Mm-hmm.
Where can people find you?
I'm all over social media. Honestly, if you Google Ty.R.Brady, I'm usually one or two. I mean, I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I try to keep inspiring stuff, optimistic. I think we were talking earlier. Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about paths in life, right? And, I've talked a lot about the last 2 weeks about you can live a life of ease and comfort. What do I mean by that? You can go get a job, you can work 9 to 5, you can go to college, you can get a 4-year degree, and you'll live comfortably. But if you want to live a life of service, adventure, and abundance, you've got to choose a different path. You can't have both. I mean, I interview people all the time. They're like, Ty, I want to do what you do. And to be honest with you, these are guys that are doctors, attorneys, lawyers. I had a guy that was an attorney on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, Ty, I don't want to be an attorney. I love being an attorney, but he tells a story on the podcast show where one of his attorneys didn't show up to court, and it was like crisis mode for him. He had to fix the problem, and he's like, I don't want to do that anymore. So he's in the process of opening a black label supplemental company. So it's selling supplements because he wants to be able to take his kids to Lake Powell. And that's those two paths, right? You can live ease and comfort, or you can use service and abundance, right? And adventure. You choose. And there's not a wrong choice.
Lead with people and the money will follow. I'm psychologically unemployable myself now.
I will never go back to being, knock on wood. I won't. I mean, I just won't do it. I'll do something. I mean, I'm not going to have to, but I won't do it.
Oh, good for you, man. Glad you got your things figured out. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you, Ty, for being on. Like, subscribe, share. We'll see you next time.